Today's gospel presents a scene that may seem unsettling. Jesus speaks of signs of cities surrounded by armies and of the end of times. Yet, at the heart of this passage there is not fear but hope. Jesus invites his followers to lift up their heads, for their redemption is near. That phrase, "lift up your heads," is a profound call to look beyond the darkness and recognize that even when everything seems to collapse, the love of God remains steadfast. From the Christian perspective, this teaching is an invitation to trust. Jesus does not promise a life free of difficulties, but the divine presence within them. He reminds us that human history is not moving toward chaos, but toward fulfillment. The Son of Man coming on a cloud symbolizes the return of justice, the restoration of goodness, and the triumph of love over all suffering. When the believer lifts their gaze, they are not escaping reality, but recognizing that God acts even in silence, in the invisible, in the small gestures that sustain hope. Every time we forgive, help, or believe in goodness when the world seems cruel, we are lifting our heads. We are already participating in that liberation of which Jesus speaks. From the Islamic perspective, this idea resonates deeply. The Quran teaches that Allah never abandons those who trust in Him. In moments of trial, the Muslim believer recites the words, "Inna ma'al usri yusra," with hardship comes ease. In other words, behind every darkness lies a path of light prepared by God. The believer who sincerely submits to the divine will knows that the justice of Allah is perfect, even when human eyes fail to see it. In this sense, lifting one's head is an act of faith. It is the affirmation that the soul does not surrender to the confusion of the world, for it knows its final destiny rests in the hands of the most merciful. When one prays, gives in charity, or seeks inner peace through patience and forgiveness, one is mirroring that gesture of lifting the gaze to heaven, trusting in the divine promise of liberation and balance. Hinduism also shares this conviction that chaos is not the end, but the prelude to a new creation. In the Hindu view, the universe moves through cycles of destruction and rebirth, and each stage carries a sacred purpose. When all seems to lose meaning, Krishna's teaching in the Bhagavad Gita resounds. When duty seems difficult, act with righteousness, for the soul is eternal and cannot be destroyed. To lift one's head from this vision means remembering that our being is not limited to the body or to circumstances. It is an affirmation of the soul's immortality. The Hindu devotee who meditates, offers flowers to the altar, or repeats the name of God in the heart, is reconnecting with the divine order of the cosmos, the Dharma. And that Dharma, though sometimes clouded by trials, always leads toward universal harmony. From the Buddhist perspective, this scene acquires an even deeper inner meaning. The Buddha taught that all conditioned things are destined to change. The earthquakes, wars, and collapses of the external world also mirror the movements of the human soul. When Jesus invites us to lift up your heads, Buddhism might understand it as the moment when the mind awakens from ignorance and recognizes its own luminous nature. The practice of mindfulness allows us to see that suffering does not have the final word. Each conscious breath, each act of compassion, is a form of liberation. When we meditate in silence and let fear dissolve into understanding, we are responding to the universal call to awakening. Thus, liberation is not something that will come at the end of time, it is a reality that can be experienced now, in the serene and awakened heart. Finally, from the wisdom of Taoism and Confucianism, lifting one's head means returning to the natural balance of the Tao, the harmonious flow of existence. The Tao does not fear change, for change is its essence. When the world seems in turmoil, the Taoist sage observes without fear and responds with calm. He knows that what is rigid breaks, while what is flexible endures. Thus, lifting one's head is not defying destiny but aligning with it. It is recognizing that everything that happens has meaning within the universal order. The Confucian, on the other hand, finds in this gesture a call to moral duty. Even in difficult times, one must act with righteousness, cultivate goodness, and sustain social harmony. To lift one's head is to look to the heavens without losing sight of the earth, knowing that true wisdom is expressed through daily virtue. When we unite all these perspectives, the message of the gospel becomes even greater. It is not about fearing the end of time, but about recognizing that every crisis is an opportunity for spiritual rebirth. In Christianity, we await the return of the Son of Man. In Islam, the perfect justice of Allah. In Hinduism, the restoration of Dharma. In Buddhism, the awakening of the heart. And in Taoism and Confucianism, the balance of the Tao. All point to the same truth. Light does not disappear when night falls, it simply waits for us to learn to see with new eyes. Thus, when the gospel tells us, "Lift up your heads, for your redemption is near," we can understand it as a universal call. It is an invitation not to remain trapped in fear or despair, but to remember that deep within every spiritual tradition shines the same certainty, that life always renews itself. Liberation is not far away, nor does it depend on the end of time. It is being born within every heart willing to believe, to trust, and to love beyond the darkness. To lift up one's head is to choose hope. It is to affirm that, though the world may change, the spirit endures. It is to discover that, at its core, all religions are paths leading to the same truth, the certainty that divine love, the order of the universe, or the enlightened compassion of the soul sustains us in every storm. And when we finally understand this, the end no longer frightens us, because we realize that there is, in truth, no end, only an eternal renewal of goodness, light, and peace.